Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Poema podcast. I am James Prescott, your host. Welcome to the show. Really great to have you all back again. And again, I'm delighted to welcome back a returning guest who is back with her third book in 3 years, I think, as well. And they're all brilliant books of poetry. Marla Taviano, welcome back.
Thank you, James. I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. We had you on before to talk about your two other books of poetry. And the names have absolutely my mind's gone blank with the names now. But
Unbelieved, jaded, and whole.
Whole is the new one. Yes, I knew that one.
Yes.
That's it. Yeah, Whole. Yeah, and then the new one is amazing as well. But it's like it's almost like a 3-act play in a sense. Like there's 3 different books, but they're telling a story. And then different parts of your story, which is I've never seen that done before actually with poetry, where you've had like 3 books, which are all poetry but are telling a story about you and about the author, and it's brilliant. It's wonderful. Um, if you haven't got any of them, by the way, I would go online and get all of them because they're fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I've been reading them and then just some of them just speak so powerfully to like the deconstruction journey, to my journey. There was one that I read which was really, really powerful. And yes, it was. What was it called? It was called "On the Loose" was the title of this one, and it's about not getting pigeonholed, not being pinned down, not picking a lane. And becoming uncaged and kind of let loose on the world as yourself. And that spoke to me a lot about my own journey. But there's so many others like we could go. But how did that whole process of writing this book, but also writing all 3, how did that kind of pan out?
Well, it's interesting that you said that it's brilliant that I did this trilogy journey. And I do think it's brilliant now, but that wasn't my plan. So I
Yeah, I
feel
love
like
that. I love that.
I can't really take credit for it. And sometimes I'm still a little amazed at how it worked out. So in the past, I would have credited God, like that would have been a God thing. I don't know if it's the universe or my muse or what.
Mm.
But when I wrote Unbelieve, and the subtitle is Poems on the Journey to Becoming a Heretic, that was going to be my deconstruction story where I'm telling everything that happened. And then I was going to have a second book, just 2, and it was going to be after the deconstruction and everything that's happening now and this new freedom and finding more to love or whatever. And as I sat down to write the second one, I just had a bunch of bitterness and anger still bubbling up inside of me. And so I decided to write that, and Jaded, the subtitle of Jaded, the second book, is a poetic reckoning with white evangelical Christian indoctrination. And then Whole is the book that I envisioned to be book 2. It was initially going to be called More. And then as I was writing, it's like all the poems were about being whole. And so I changed the title. And the subtitle of that is Poems on Reclaiming the Pieces of Ourselves and Creating Something New. So it really did turn into this trilogy of the beginning and then the dark forest and then coming out on the other side. And
Yeah,
so I love how it turned out. And it's not what I would call a happy ending. I'm not at the end. Everything isn't happy, but there is so much freedom and joy and wholeness, and that's what the third book is all about.
yeah, and I actually love that it wasn't planned because I think that's how the best stories are. It's like you kind of don't set if you like. I've seen this in movies as well, where they kind of where they plan everything in advance, and it's going to be this, and it turns into something completely different. Like
Yeah.
some of the best movie trilogies weren't written as a whole thing beforehand. Um, and I think when it comes more intuitively, and it's oh, I've got this to tell. Oh, I've got that to tell. Oh, I've got this is what's coming of my out of my body, out of my muse. It's
Mhm.
more organic. I think
Yeah.
is that what it felt like to you?
Yeah, it definitely felt like that to me. And this is the first, I haven't been a poet my whole life. I mean, maybe I have been, like it was hidden inside of me. But the the first book that I wrote, Unbelieve, in 2021, that was the first book of poetry that I'd ever published. And I published a lot of other books that were all prose. And so, yeah, it just it came out that way, and I'm really, really happy with it. I'm excited that all three are out in the world, and it's kind of the end of the story, but it's also the beginning of my story too. I probably won't be writing a lot about deconstruction going forward, but it's always going to be part of me. I just feel like there's so much more that I want to move into.
Yeah, yeah, and I got that feeling from reading it as well. Sometimes you get a feeling when you've read a lot of books by the same author, you kind of get a connection in a sense. And I've had this with other authors as well when they've written books that I've read when I've read a lot of authors of their books. Is that I had this with Rob Bell actually, that I read Everything is Spiritual and I felt like this is the end of something. Like there's
Hmm.
going to be something else coming, but it's going to be different. And there was. And I felt kind of similar when I read this as well. Like this is its own thing. These three books are telling their own story and they needed to be written and now there's something else. And it's gonna whatever it is, it's gonna be great. And maybe we don't know what it is yet, but it's gonna be awesome. Um,
Can we go back to Rob Bell for a second? Because I downloaded that episode and I meant to listen to it before we did this interview and I didn't get around to it. So I'm excited to hear what he had to say about his new work of fiction. Have you had him on before? This wasn't your first time,
no,
right?
I've had him on 3 times now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, he's amazing. Like the way his brain works and the way his books have spoken to me. Yeah, I'm really excited to listen to that and then to read his new novel.
It's unlike anything I've ever read. Really, it's profound, but it's fantastical, but it's ridiculous, but it's also very deep and meaningful. Um, and it came out of nowhere. It came out of like he was a dream he had when he was half asleep, and he just had to follow it.
Wow.
He just followed his curiosity, and there it was. And it's like a 700-page book or whatever, and it's
Oh my
brilliant,
gosh.
very compelling. And I just love it. And he's writing plays and stuff as well. He's having plays put on as well. Like, and there's going to be other books in this series of. So yeah, I mean, it's just he's. I think he's inspiration to a lot of people in terms of just following your curiosity and just
Yes.
following your
Yes.
intuition, and just creating out of that. Um, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
So yeah,
love
I
that.
wanted to listen to that. That episode is actually on YouTube as well. There's a video of it on YouTube. So
Oh,
um,
cool.
yeah. So anyone who's not watched that or listened to that already, please do. Yeah. No, I mean, what I like, I always ask this when I talk to people about books because it's so, to me, it's such a fundamental thing. What did writing this book do to you? What did writing these poems and putting them together do to you in terms of your journey?
There's this quote, and I forget who said it because I think I've seen it attributed to different people, but it's something about I don't know how I feel until I see what I write. And it's that idea that sometimes even to figure out what you're feeling and to process that, you need to put it out into words and see. So I do that a lot. That's how I process the things that I'm experiencing, the things that I'm feeling. I I almost instantly feel at least a little bit better if something is really terrible and I go right to my journal and I go right to my computer and write it down. There's just some kind of like release valve that just turns and I can breathe a little better. And I'm getting ready to go back through my journals. Yes, you said something about what's next, and I'm going to be writing a memoir about my divorce and my ex-husband's infidelity. And I know that when I go back to my journals, that's anytime in my marriage when he would hurt my feelings or say something mean or be irrational, I would go right to that journal and just pour it all out. So I know that there's a lot in there that's going to help me write this book. But as I was writing this poetry, yeah, it helped crystallize things. It helped me heal from some things. Um, my favorite part is like what you said when you talked about certain poems resonating with you and your journey. You as a writer, as a poet, you write these things down and you feel that they resonate with you personally, but then it's not till it gets in the hands of the people who are reading it and then they give you their feedback, like this resonates with me, or I've had people tell me, you've inspired me to write poetry again, or to get my own thoughts and feelings down, or to talk about my journey. And so I will get DMs constantly, which is such a privilege and a joy to live in this time where people could read your book anywhere and then find you on the internet and tell you what they thought about your book. And so that adds another dimension to it,
Mm.
of healing even more, because even if the books were just for me and my healing, that would be great. But that's not the only reason I wrote them. I wrote them for other people too. And when I get to see that, and hear that directly from the people it touched, it means a lot. It adds depth to what I did, and it it doesn't make everything better, but it does feel really redemptive to know that if you go through something really shitty, but it it helped other people who are going through that too. There's just something about that that feels really empowering and really good.
Mm. Yeah, I know what you mean, and I get feedback from things that I make as well,
Yeah.
podcasts and my articles that I write and stuff. And I know what you mean. It's like you kind of. I'm not very good at taking compliments, but it kind of just makes you feel good that something you've made has had an impact on somebody else. Um,
Yes.
for sure, yeah, um, and that's just a bonus, really. But yeah, I mean, like it's interesting that it's kind of led you to kind of what you know is going to be the next thing, which is going to be different from what you've done, which is a memoir. And I can't wait to
Yeah.
read that either. That'll be an interesting story. But it's yeah, I'm always curious about the therapeutic power of creating things. Um, have writing these poems, all three really, have they been therapeutic for you?
Yeah, definitely. And I have also kind of expanded my poetry writing into what I'm just calling poem art because I don't know what else to call it. But um, I am collecting kids' books. Some of them are from the 70s, when I was born, and books that I read or my mom read to me as a kid. Some of them are books that I read to my kids, but I'm collecting them at thrift stores for like 50 cents. And then I tear out the illustrations, and I have some messed up copies of my book, and I've used regular copies, but I will tear out the pages, cut up the poems into different lines, and then glue the poems onto these illustrations that they match. And the word juxtaposition comes to mind because it's like I'm juxtaposing these words of mine with an illustration that actually matches in some kind of way. Like the characters in the illustration are doing what my poem says. And I've been making the poem art and then sharing it, and people resonate with it. It's a little bit like a meme because you can see the illustration and then you can see the words on
Mm,
it, and it kind of has a different impact than just reading a bunch of words. And then I have this book that I self-published recently. It's called Please Cut Up My Poems. and make
Oh
some art
wow.
for real. I'm serious. And there's nothing on the back of the pages. So all the poems are on the front, and you it's for other people to then cut out and make their own poem art. So people are sending me their poem art, and I've had people tell me that they never felt like they were good at art, but they always wanted to do art, and this is helping them, or they put their own poems with pictures. So yeah, the healing, a lot of different layers of healing.
That's I love that concept. So you've basically created a book of poetry for people to deliberately cut it up and stick and be like,
Yes.
I thought it's brilliant. That's
And
such. I love that
here's
idea. I just think that's fantastic.
here's an example. So this is strawberry shortcake, something that I loved as a kid, and then here's my poem. Um,
Oh
so this
wow.
one, they're sitting around a table, and then the poem says it's called Renewed Theopathy. I thought
Right.
that maybe, just maybe, I was ready to give it all up for good, but then I met some people and read some books that have me thinking I'll leave a different kind of God on the table for now. And that was kind of born out of like some pastor friends that I have. And even though I don't call myself a Christian now and I don't really know what I believe about God, I'm hearing some of them talk about God in a different kind of way that's not the angry God that doesn't want queer people to go to heaven. It's like a
Mm. Yeah.
not even really an anthropomorphic God at all. It's more of just a what I would call the universe or love or something like that. So um yeah, that's opened up a whole new world to me, that what I'm really denouncing is white evangelical Christian
Yeah.
indoctrination, not necessarily all the other things. Even though, like, going to any kind of church or even reading theology these days is not, it just feels a little bit boring to me. I might go back to it, but I was steeped in it for so long that I'm just curious about the rest of the world and um, not really
Mm.
staying inside the Bible anymore, like some of my friends do. And they love it. They love learning about the Bible all the time and reading the Bible, which is great for them. It's not my thing anymore. But yeah, the poem art has just been a lot of fun. It brings back a lot of memories of cartoons that I watched or books that I loved, and then putting my poems with them and
Just the
seeing
whole
what other
yeah.
people do. Yeah.
I mean, you get a lot of DJs that do cut and paste stuff. They get bits of other
Yeah.
crap, put them all together and make something new. That's kind of what poem art is. It's like I
Yeah.
love that. I just love that idea. I'd never heard of that before. Like it's just such a, and actually, I'm just like blown away by this idea that you're publishing a book and you're telling people to cut the book up. And I think that's so brilliant. Like I don't know. I'm just like those sort of things get me excited because it's
Well,
just
I
so innovative. Like
I've had a
mm,
couple friends and one of my daughters who have said, I don't think I can tear this book up. Like, I don't think I can cut a book up. It's hard to do that. I don't want to do it. And I get that. I mean, I love books. You can see behind me, I've got all of these books.
yeah,
With the kids' books, I just feel like it's not, I'm not destroying something. I'm taking something that was sad and lonely on a shelf at the thrift store that nobody wants to read anymore because it's old, and I'm giving it new life, and I'm putting it back on the internet, and I'm sharing these illustrations that made me smile as a kid. And yeah, so it's kind of a different way of looking at it, but the book is fun. Oh, another thing about the book is that I asked for poem submissions from people online. So there are 15 other poets that have a poem in the book. And so that was my way of like giving some of my friends, like publishing them in a book. So I'm also going to be doing, while I'm working on my divorce memoir, I'm going to do a second edition of the cut up poems, but all the poems will be about divorce and cheating and being a single parent. And so that is going to be a special kind of therapeutic, cathartic art for anyone who has gone through something like that. And it's something for me to also help me kind of figure out what I want my memoir to look like, because I haven't decided exactly if it's going to be prose, poetry, a combination. Will probably be a combination, but figuring out what I want to say, It's hard. I'm talking about another person. I'm telling things about this person that are not they're not good, that are unflattering. But I'm telling my truth and speaking my truth. And so I want it to be powerful. I want it to help other people heal, and I want to do it. I want to do it from a place of healing and not from a place of deep pain, which is what it would have been if I would have done it a couple of years ago when I thought I was going to do it, but I wasn't ready. And so now I can feel in my heart that I am able to be even a little bit generous with my ex-husband, who still really isn't sorry for what he did, and there's still a lot of terrible things that he did to me. But yeah, I'm excited to share this story and see how it all turns out.
Yeah, yeah, it's exciting. And, and you can do that. You can keep doing those books as well. Like you can keep creating those things. Like because it just what it does is it kind of creates a platform for new creativity. Like
Mm-hmm.
it just gives opportunities to people to make something new, which is wonderful.
Well, people have
Yeah,
had poem art parties. Like I've had several friends that they invite their friends over and they have books and they do the poems. And so next month I'm doing a poetry reading, um, and I'm going to take some poem art supplies with me so people will be able to make their own poem art at this event. So I would love for that to be a thing where people just keep doing it. I have a friend who's a teacher and they're using it in school, like for their kids to do art, poem art. So yeah, it does kind of feel like we're starting a little poem art revolution, starting on a very small scale, and we'll just see how it goes.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. We've almost forgotten about the book we're meant to be talking about, Whole, like which is kind of weird, ironic because it's called Whole, and we're talking about a book that's where you're cutting things up.
Okay, you
Um,
know what? I don't think it's ironic. I think it's very fitting. And I have poems toward the back of the book of Whole where I talk about taking your fragments, like all the pieces of you, and
yeah,
how we
yeah,
put them together and that they're really important, and just trying to figure out too. Because sometimes when you deconstruct or when you have a divorce, different things, they feel like pieces have shattered, but there are still pieces that are salvageable and you can put them together in a new way. And ironically, I ordered 100 copies of the book, and when they came from the printer, 38 of them, of the 100, were aligned a little bit crooked. So the spine, instead of looking really pretty, it had part of the front on the spine and it was uneven. And so I told my publisher, and they told the printer, and the printer sent me 38 replacement copies of my book. So I ended up getting 38 free copies of Whole that were a little bit messed up. And so I've been giving them to people and selling them at like a discounted rate for them to make poem art out of. So we have these like imperfect books that I've just been handed that I can now rip the poems out of and make more art. So there's just so many metaphors and so many things that have happened around the idea of pieces and fragments and whole and stitching things together. And yeah, I love it.
yeah, yeah. And you're right. Actually, there's a sense of completion, isn't there, with one where you're cutting things up and another one where it's whole. And maybe, yeah, like you say, that poem, which I loved as well, about taking broken things and making them into something new and something whole. Um, yeah, yeah. And I mean, was there a sense of wholeness when you finished this book? A sense of completion, not in maybe not in your own journey, but in terms of this particular set of set of books or this particular season.
Yeah, all of those things actually. Like it felt like the trilogy was complete. It feels like I am now whole, and I will always be um going more and more and more toward wholeness, becoming more and more whole, but I'm the most whole that I have been in a very long time, and I'm wholly me, like not who I think I have to be because of what Christianity told me or what my ex-husband told me or any of that, but who I actually really am and what I love and what I want to do. And it's not even a selfish thing, because what I've found is the things that bring me the most joy in life are the best ways for me to reach out and help others. For example, when I was a Christian and going to church 3 times a week and volunteering in all these capacities, I would work in the church nursery. I would do other things, things that were not in my wheelhouse, not in my zone of genius. I did not enjoy them at all. And now I'm going around to thrift stores and finding really good books and donating them to my Black friends who are starting pop-up shops. There's a new queer bookstore that just opened here in Columbia, South Carolina, and I find used books for them. And so I'm able to help what I would have called being a blessing back when in my Christian days. I'm able to be a blessing to people through my love of books, and it's just been really really exciting and fulfilling. So I feel whole. I feel like this trilogy is whole and complete, and I love helping other people find wholeness. And I know in Christianity, there were so many times when there were parts of people that they were told you had to deny this part or push this part down, especially if they were queer, if they were a person of color in a predominantly white church, and they had to fit in and assimilate to whiteness. And for me, I just want to celebrate each person for who they are, who they were meant to be, who they want to be. I think a lot about the trans community, people allowing them to be who they really are inside, and helping their outside match their inside, and what that feeling must be like when there's no more dysphoria. And so that's my thing now, is love, and then wholeness, like helping other people feel whole, whatever that is for them. For some people it is they write poetry, they do other things. Some people make art, some people do other things entirely. Whatever it is that fills you up, and then can also be the gift that you give to the world, because that's what we need, is people who have passion, people who have love, people who love what they're doing and love who they are, and then that just radiates outward to everybody else.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. That's kind of that's a wonderful journey, a wonderful story. That, yeah, because that's it. That's what happens when we go on our deconstruction journeys. Is that it happens to us, but then it starts radiating out to all the people around us, because they start to see that change, and we become different people. Like I've noticed this in my deconstruction journey as well. Like that, I've been talking about this with friends actually. That I now the reason I've been able to have healthy relationships and get married, and um, a lot of other things, and deal with living with autism and all those kind of things, is because I've healed a lot of those broken pieces, and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
doing that, I've discovered the real me,
yeah,
the one that I was hiding, not the one I was, not the mask I was hiding behind for so long, and that that mask kind of was broken apart, and underneath was who I was all along,
yeah.
and of course then people get to see that, and that has an impact on them, which is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and it's so freeing when you realize that you can be yourself, you can take that mask off, and people will still love you even when they know all the things about you. And I think we had that fear that if I take this mask off, if I let people know what I really feel, or that I struggle with this, or that I'm gay, or whatever it is, and afraid to take it off because you're afraid of what people would say or think. When you do take that off and you find a community, I think of the queer community a lot, where sometimes their families have disowned them, or they don't fit, or they're not allowed to be at their church or whatever, and then they have this chosen found family, and such a beautiful picture of what it should actually have been like all along, where you're surrounded by people who love you for who you are, who you actually really are. And I'm not saying like we never try to be better versions of ourselves, but it's about being, that's the key word, is a version of ourselves, like not be someone different, but who I am, continue to be the best me that I can be, not trying to be what someone else wants or how to fit into a box or wear a mask so that I don't offend anyone by who I am. And so, yeah, I love that for you, that you've um, found healing and then been able to find like a relationship, a romantic relationship, other relationships. People ask me sometimes if I'm like, if I'll ever date again, and I'm not in the mood for it right at the moment, to be honest. But I know that if I am in a romantic relationship ever again, that I have a very high standard for what I want that person to be. I want them to be very healed, very whole. And so I need to make sure that I am very healed and very whole, so that I am on that same level with the person that I might meet someday. But also, as I talk about in the book in whole, I say, you know what? If there isn't another person for me someday, I am perfectly happy and content right now with my very own whole self. Like, I love myself. I'm an introvert anyway, so I love sitting on my couch by myself, my own coffee, my own book, and I'm really happy that way too. So we'll see what the future holds. I'm not it's not never, I'll never say never, but I just really love this time with just me, and my kids live with me still, so I'm not I'm not all by myself.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's the thing, isn't it? We have these communities around us who are support networks, and for you, that's your family. I have a wonderful family too, although they live far away.
Yeah.
Of course, I have my fiance now as well, but and I have other communities that I'm part of, which are really healthy. What I mean, like one thing I found actually is as I've deconstructed the communities, I've gravitated towards healthier communities, and I've found healthier communities, like different kinds of communities than I was part of before. Um, because I'm looking for them, I guess, but also because I'm ready to be part of a healthy community.
Right, right. And probably, and I have a poem about this too, where a lot of times in church, and I had good friends at church, but I think what we had in common was basically this belief system. And so when that disintegrated and I didn't have that in common anymore, then it's like, well, now what do we do? And I've enjoyed communities um, that are based around something different. So like a book community or something like that, or a poetry community. I'm in a group right now leading a month-long poetry workshop with my friend Taylor. And there are 16 of us in there that are all writing poetry together. So that's what's bringing us together, not a system of beliefs that we all have to adhere to or we get kicked out. It's something that we love, that we're passionate about, that we want to help each other with, and we've made community around that. So there are all kinds. You can do it around interests. The queer community, you can do it around like your sexuality, whatever it is. It's not around some list of rules and beliefs that everybody has to hold.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, yeah, uh, and that's the beauty of healthy community is that it doesn't have those things. I'm in communities where those things, where there's, where you don't have to subscribe to a belief system, where you don't have to,
Yeah.
not everyone has to believe the same thing or have the same experience. You can all just come as you are and be you without any fear or shame. Uh, that's what healthy community looks like. It's you know,
Yeah.
and it is possible. I know there's some people listening who think that, or maybe despairing that it's possible, but it is. And like one of the things we have to deconstruct is how we do community, because the ways that we've done it probably won't help.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's really true. And I've had a lot of people say that, like, how do you find community outside of church? and it is hard. And it's been slow for me. Like I moved to a new state. I moved to South Carolina from Cambodia, the beginning of a pandemic. Then my ex-husband left. I work from home. So it's taken me a while to plug into my local community. In the meantime, I've had community online, which a lot of people had to do, obviously, during the pandemic anyway. And um, it's just been, yeah, it hasn't been easy, but it's definitely possible. And like you keep saying, it's healthier. It's healthier. I just, I love it. And I don't know, right now, much like I don't really feel like getting married, I don't know that I'd ever go back to church. It would take a really special circumstance or a special church or something. But um, I know that's been tough for people. My kids have had, a couple of them have had a hard time finding community here, like since we moved here during the pandemic. Um, and I've had that thought, like how easy it was for them to have friends when we were all going to church together. But that's not the kind of community I want for them right now. So I'll just keep plugging along and hoping that they find their people in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is hope. There is. Um, yeah, you have to just look for it. I stumbled on it accidentally, honestly,
Yeah,
during lockdown, and I'm so grateful for that. I've always been lucky with my family as well. We've always been quite a close knit family, and you know, nobody cares what anybody else believes. My dad's still a Christian. My sister has never been a Christian. I'm kind of into spirituality, and I'm not sure what label that falls under, but Jesus is part of it, and it's fine. We just all
yeah,
coexist, and there's no problems. So, um, and that's how it should be. It should be just everyone has their own journey, and everyone's journey is valid. And it's really important to people to know that. Like, there's no prescribed set deconstruction journey that everyone has to follow.
yeah. And it's usually the Christians that don't allow that freedom for everyone to believe what they believe or to do what they do. So that's really cool that your family is like that. My family is, I would say, is not really like that, but I do have a brother and a sister who um, their beliefs are somewhat different from mine, but they still accept me. So yeah, so I feel lucky in that sense. And some other people in my family have not been as gracious as my beliefs have changed. But I know a lot of people, they get disowned by their family, kicked out of the family, and that's hard. And it doesn't really feel to me like that's that shouldn't be what Christianity is about. That's not what Jesus was about. And I think a lot of Christians have just lost sight of what it really actually means to follow Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I think, yeah, I mean, I have a place for Jesus in my spiritual journey without necessarily belonging to a religion. But the stories of Jesus and some of the teachings of Jesus still mean something to me. It's.
Yeah.
I think the problem I had was the religious side of it, the toxic religion, legalistic, you know, institutional stuff. I think some of the theological stuff as well, obviously, but not Jesus himself. Like when you strip all that away, it's just him. That makes it easier for me. But everyone has
Yeah.
their own journey, and that's the beauty of it. It's um, and that's why I love you've written poetry as well, because poetry is so abstract in that we can all interpret it in our own way and come at it with our own from our own stories and our own perspective and interpret it in a way which is unique to us. There's no kind of, I mean, you can do that with regular books as well, but with poetry, it's easy to do that. It's like looking at a painting almost.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, almost like you're putting the poetry art. They're putting
Yeah.
that together. It's like looking at a painting, and you take it as you want to take it, as your soul
Hmm.
meets with it. You know?
Yeah, I've told people you can't really argue with the poem. And I feel like when I put things out on the internet and and people want to fight with me. It hasn't happened in a while. And I realized because I stopped doing that, I stopped writing big, long things that people can disagree with and argue about. And I've started to do the form of poetry. And it really is hard to argue with a poem. It doesn't give you a lot of space. You can engage with it, interact with it, think about it, but it's kind of hard to argue. Not that I'm sure there are some people that could argue with my poems, but just that idea that it's not in your face. I'm not looking for a fight. I'm just sharing, expressing my feelings and using just a few words sometimes and getting my point across, but also leaving, like you said, leaving room for interpretation, leaving it open ended, um, leaving space for other people to insert their experience and how they feel. I've even had people write, so there's a lot of white space in my books, and I encourage people to write in the margins. I write in books all the time. That's how I remember what I liked in the book, what resonated with me. I'll write notes in the margins. And so people write in the white space. And I've had people kind of rewrite my poems where they would put their situation in place of what I was saying, because it's like the same thing, it's just a little bit different details. So yeah, I love that form. I love what it invites. And then the poem art is another layer. And I have a friend who is actually making a musical out of my book, Unbelieve. And so that's another thing. Yeah, it's he's making, like, writing songs out of my poems. So this layer upon layer of art and music and words is really exciting to me, and I think it can go in so many different directions, and I love just being right in the middle of all of it.
Wow. Wow, that's wonderful. That is, I can't wait to see that musical. That's going to be wonderful.
I know, me too.
That's crazy. That's incredible. I love it. I love all this creativity. You're not just creating things, but you're inspiring creativity in others, like by how you do what you do. Because of the book of cut out poetry, and now this musical, like, it's wonderful. I think it's amazing. So inspiring. It's really inspiring.
Yeah, I love it. And I think people have asked me, like, how do I build a platform? How do I get people to pay attention to me? How do I get them to read my stuff? And there's so much out there, like so much content wise. I know you and I have talked about it before too. Like with your
Yeah,
podcast, you are telling other people's stories. You're engaging other people. It's not just you getting on here and talking about yourself over and over and over again. And I feel like as writers, we can't just say all of our words and expect everyone to read them and listen to them all the time. Like, what's in there's got to be something in it for them, and getting them involved and engaged and um, creating alongside us. I think that's kind of the key, is to bring other people along with you and give them a place and a space to share themselves. And so that's what I've tried to do, and I love it so much. Like, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I love hearing other people's stories, sharing those stories, sharing their art, and it's just been really fulfilling for me. I'm pretty committed to um, like growing an audience organically and responding to people and all of that. So it's kind of slow going as far as book sales um, and other things, but I don't really care. Like, writing books is not my day job. I have a day job. I write for other people, and I want to keep doing this. I mean, obviously, I would love to sell tons of copies of my book. I would love to be able to support myself with my own writing. But what's most important to me right now is just that genuine communication with people, the genuine back and forth. And I don't ever want people to feel like they're being used, like I'm just using them to grow my platform or get more followers or sell more books. I really, really care, um, about each person who reads my book and communicates with me. And it's just, you talk about community. I mean, it's this really, really beautiful thing, and I love it.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been fantastic. As always,
You're
it
so
always is.
welcome. Yeah.
We'll have you back. You know, when you have that musical, when you have that next book, like it's, yeah, you're always welcome on this show. So, and where
Yeah.
can people find your work?
I am largely on Instagram and Threads right now, Marla at Marla Taviano, and I'm also at White Girl Learning on Instagram, where I read and review books by Black, Indigenous, other authors of color. And I have a website, marlataviano.com, but it needs to be updated. But you can find my books wherever books are sold, and it's Unbelieve, Jaded, and Whole are those titles. And you can also go to lakedrivebooks.com and find each one of those there. That's my publisher.
Fantastic. Do check all of that out, everyone. Highly, highly recommend it. So, yeah, thanks for coming on again, and well, I'm sure we'll have you back again in the future. And thanks for listening, everybody.